Ice is like a hiding place for old things. It preserves what should have already been lost. But sometimes, things come out of the ice that surprise experts. In this video, we'll look at 10 strange things found in the ice. But before we continue, please like this video. It means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much. The missing aircraft in Greenland. On July 15, 1942, 8 airplanes left Presque Isle Air Base for Britain. They were part of Operation Bolero. 6 of these were P-38 Lightning fighters. 2 were B-17 Flying Fortress bombers. There were 25 crew members on board, ready for war, but they never made it. A strong snowstorm in Greenland caused them trouble. They couldn't refuel because the stops they needed were closed. They were running out of fuel, so they looked for a place to land. They found a flat part of the ice and landed there one by one. All 8 planes crashed onto the ice. Fortunately, everyone was safe. They were rescued after 9 days. During those days, they were just on the ice. They had no proper shelter. They only had a few supplies. They had to wait until help arrived. They left the planes behind, thinking they could easily retrieve them later. But that's not what happened. For 50 years, the ice kept moving. Thick snow kept piling up. The planes slowly sank and ended up beneath the ice. They drifted several miles away from their original location. As time passed, the ice kept moving. It never stopped. It slowly pushed the planes away from their original position. So even if you know where they first landed, it doesn't mean they're still there. After many years, they ended up in a different place, and they eventually ended up more than 200 feet deep. As the ice moves, it doesn't just sink. It also gradually gets covered by new snow. Each year, the thickness increases. That's why it becomes even harder to see from above. It's as if the planes were completely swallowed by the ice. On the surface, all you see is white ice. There's no trace of what happened. It's as if nothing ever crashed there. In 1982, Pat Epps and Richard Taylor tried to find them, but they couldn't find the planes right away. It took many more years and new technology before they found it. In 1992, they used a special machine to melt the ice downwards. It was like they drilled a narrow hole all the way down to the bottom of the plane. It wasn't a fast process. They went through the ice slowly. One wrong move, and what they recover could be damaged. That's why every movement was careful. They slowly worked on it. They lifted a Lockheed P-38 Lightning piece by piece. These are big and heavy. It's not easy to pull them out. The right equipment and careful movements are needed, because if they're careless, the plane could be damaged, and all their hard work would go to waste. But even though it was difficult, they managed to get it out from under the thick ice, and that's where they saw how well the ice could hide what happened. It took 10 years before the plane was finally restored. On October 26, 2002, more than 60 years after it was forced to land on the ice, Glacier Girl flew again. More than 20,000 people watched as it took off from the runway in Kentucky. Some of the veterans from 1942 were also there and witnessed its return. Sparta, the young cave lion in Siberia. In 2018, a man named Boris Berezov was searching for mammoth tusks by the riverbank. This is commonly done in the area using strong water jets to dig through ice and soil. But what he found was not a tusk. He found a lion cub. This cub was named Sparta. It remained under the frozen ground for 28,000 years. Even its fur and whiskers were still intact. According to experts, this is one of the best preserved animals from the Ice Age. This is not commonly seen. Usually, only bones are left. But here, the body is almost completely intact. Its fur is just a bit dirty, but there's hardly any damage. Its teeth, skin, flesh, and even the inside of its body are still whole. Its claws, even after a long time has passed, are still sharp. They can still cause injury if touched. You can still see the shape of its body. Its form hasn't changed. It still looks fine. It's as if it just fell asleep inside the ice. According to Love the Lynn, it looks almost like it just recently died. The cave lion is a different kind of lion compared to the lions we have today. They are bigger and have thicker fur because of the cold environment. They lived in different parts of the world back then, until they disappeared about 14,000 years ago. Almost everything we know about them comes from bones, cave drawings, and discoveries, like Sparta. A year before Sparta was found, another lion cub was discovered nearby. It was named Boris. The places where they were found are close to each other. That's why scientists think they are related. But when their ages were examined, it turned out there was a big gap. Sparta is about 28,000 years old. Boris, on the other hand, is about 43,000 years old. They were found close to each other, but thousands of years apart in their lifetimes. There were also no signs that they were eaten. By other animals, it's possible that they were suddenly buried by soil or ice. And because of that, they were very well preserved. So even after such a long time, they can still be touched. The young horse from Siberia that still had blood in it. In August 2018, there were people searching again for mammoth tusks at the Nunchoga crater. This is a large hole in the ground known in the area as the path to the underworld. That's where they found a young horse. It was only about 1 to 2 weeks old when it died. It was small, about the size of a dog. Its color was brown. It had a black tail and hair on its neck. It stayed in the ice for more than 40,000 years. Its skin, fur, and hooves are still intact. Even the inside of its body still looks good. It's not like the others that are usually excavated. Usually the insides are already damaged. But in this case, the tissue was still intact. And the most surprising thing is that experts found something. There is still blood inside its heart. Usually blood dries up or hardens over time. But in this case, it remained like liquid because it was quickly buried in mud that immediately froze. It's like the body was sealed, so no air could get in, which prevented it from decaying quickly and kept the flesh inside the body intact. Because the blood was preserved by the extreme cold, this is the oldest blood ever recovered from an ancient animal. This is 27,000 years older than the previous one. Experts from Russia and South Korea immediately tried to extract living cells from the young horse. They want to clone it to bring back the type of horse called the Lena horse. But so far, they've tried more than 20 times and all have failed. Despite this, it remains one of the most amazing discoveries found in the ice. Sometimes it is displayed in Japan along with other animals from the Ice Age. This means that the so-called path to the underworld is like a giant natural freezer. Jor, the wolf pup from Yukon. In 2016, there was a gold miner digging in Yukon. Usually they use high-pressure water to remove the ice and soil. But instead of finding gold, he found a small dark object. It was a wolf pup. Its age is about 57,000 years. Its body, except for the eyes, still had intact fur, skin, feet, and even the small details of its paws. You can still see the shape of its body. The way its fur lay was still clearly visible. It's not like the others where only bones are left. She was named Jor, which means wolf in the language of the local people. Her life was short, but because of the ice, her appearance didn't change, and she is still here today. Jor is the most complete wolf ever found from the Ice Age. She was still young when she died. It is believed that she died when her hiding place collapsed. Because she was buried suddenly, her body was preserved well. When her DNA was examined, it was discovered that she belonged to a type of wolf that no longer exists today. She has a slight connection to wolves in Alaska and Eurasia, but the wolves in Yukon are different now. This means her entire group is gone. And Jor is the only evidence that this kind of wolf once existed in the world. She is even older than most ancient cave drawings. She lived during a time when Neanderthals still existed in the world. She was almost swept away by a miner using high-pressure water before he noticed what it was. Fortunately, he was able to stop it right away. When scientists examined it, they saw that even the tiny details of Jor's tongue were still intact. The small bumps on the tongue were still clearly visible. He is about 29,000 years older than Sparta. He is even older than most ancient man-made artifacts, even older than the earliest human burials. A 7-week-old wolf pup that remained intact in the ice and lasted longer than almost everything that lived during its time. Nunchoga is the baby mammoth in Yukon. On June 21, 2022, a miner named Travis Moudry was digging at Eureka Creek. While he was using his machine, it hit something unusual in the ice. He got down to take a look. He thought it was just a frozen animal, but what he saw was a woolly mammoth. It was curled up like a baby in its mother's womb. It was small, about the size of a young calf. Its long trunk, ears, tail, skin, and fur were all still intact. It was only about a month old when it died, so its body was still small. It's possible that it got lost and was trapped in mud that quickly froze around it. It stayed there for more than 30,000 years. Grass was even found inside its stomach. From its last meal. This means its last meal was still fresh at that time, and it remained preserved even after a long time. The elders in the local community were the ones who gave it a name. They called it Nunchoga, which means a big baby animal. Grant Zazula, an expert in Yukon, was immediately informed about this. He said that it had long been his dream to see a real woolly mammoth, and that day, it happened. After that, they gathered at the site, together with the experts, miners, and local people. They wrapped Nunchoga, paid their respects, and carefully brought it from the place where it was found. Nunchoga is the most complete woolly mammoth ever found in North America. Even its toenails are still intact. The inside of its body is still well preserved, and its thick fur can still be seen. According to one expert, this is the most exciting discovery he has ever experienced. It was even more surprising when he arrived at the research site almost at the same time as Dior, the young wolf. Two rare animals from the ice, both found in the same place in Yukon and almost on consecutive days. But even so, there is a gap of 27,000 years between them. It seems like the time and place were just right for them to be found. The zombie virus from Siberia. In 2022, a group of experts from the French National Center for Scientific Research released a study. They found 13, the oldest of which was called the Pandora virus. It is over 48,000 years old. Because it was so old, they thought it was already useless, but it remained in the ice. It was not affected by heat or air. Most people didn't expect this. Because it was so old, it should have been gone. But it stayed inside the ice. That's why it's still intact, even after such a long time. And what's surprising is it's still alive. To test it, they brought it close to small cells, and they saw that it could enter and multiply inside the cells. They called it the Pandora virus. These viruses are unusual. They are bigger than ordinary viruses. That's why you can see them even with a regular microscope. In this study, they didn't just revive one. There are 13 types from different ages, up to almost 50,000 years old. This shows that even after a long time, there are still things that can survive under the ice. Each virus they found is different. None of these viruses are the same as the viruses known to science today, and these viruses do not affect humans. They only attach to amoebas, so they don't pose a direct threat for now. But this has a deeper meaning. If a virus like this can survive for almost 50,000 years in ice and still function, it's possible for other viruses too. Even viruses that can affect animals or humans. In 2016, there was also an anthrax outbreak in Siberia. It came from the frozen corpse of a deer that had been preserved since 1941. Many people were hospitalized and a child died. This means that ice is not just a simple hiding place. It's like a storage for things that once lived. And when the conditions are right, some things can come back again. The ship Endurance in Antarctica. On March 5, 2022, a ship was found under the sea. It was at a depth of almost 3,000 meters in the Weddell Sea. They used a robot to find it. The name of the ship is Endurance. This was Ernest Shackleton's ship. Even though it has been under the sea for more than 100 years, it still looks good. The posts are still standing, the ropes are still intact, and the steering wheel is still there. Almost nothing has changed in its appearance, and every part is still clear. It's as if it had only been lost recently. You can still see the window leading to Shackleton's room. It's as if it just recently sank. The sea hasn't destroyed it yet, and it hasn't collapsed either. That's why the ship still looks remarkably well preserved. According to those who saw it, it's one of the most well-preserved shipwrecks ever found. This showed how powerful the cold water and ice of Antarctica are at preserving things. The story of how the Endurance ended up there is one of the most incredible survival stories. In 1914, Ernest Shackleton set out on a journey. Together with 27 people, they wanted to cross all of Antarctica. But in January 1915, the ship got stuck in thick ice in the Weddell Sea. They stayed on the ship for almost 10 months as it was slowly crushed by the ice, until the time came when they had to leave it. On October 27, 1915, Shackleton ordered them to abandon the ship. They watched it sink from the ice where they stood. That's where the harder struggle began. They spent almost 497 days in the middle of the ice. They slept on moving ice, rowed in small boats, and kept going despite the extreme hardship. In the end, they reached Elephant Island, a place with no people. But it didn't end there. Shackleton and some of his companions sailed more than 1,000 kilometers to South Georgia. After this, he went back to rescue everyone. And the most amazing thing is, not a single one of them died. More than 100 years later, the Endurance was found. It was only about 4 miles away from the location that was recorded before. There was almost no difference, so they were surprised. Because of the extremely cold water and the scarce marine life, the ship was preserved. It looked like it had just recently sunk. They even saw the plates, boots, and the ship's bell, but it can't be disturbed. According to the agreement in Antarctica, the ship is protected as part of history. It will remain under the sea, silent and intact at a depth of almost 3,000 meters. And there, it continues to hold a story of courage and survival that rarely happens. Meanwhile, the RMS Titanic is deteriorating much faster. It is slowly being eaten away by tiny sea organisms, and some parts are already collapsing. According to experts, after a few decades, it might no longer be recognizable. But the Endurance had a different fate. Because of the extreme cold and the depth of the place where it sank, there is almost no life that can damage it. That's why, even now, it is still almost completely intact. It's like it's frozen under the sea. According to the leader of the expedition, this is the best preserved sunken wooden ship he has ever seen. And that's not an exaggeration. You can really see in the footage it looks different. It was searched for before, but they didn't succeed. In 2019, they couldn't get through because of the thick ice. But in 2022, they managed to do it. They went through strong storms, moving ice and extreme cold that was almost negative 20 degrees. They used a small submarine to search for the ship in the vast depths of the sea. And on the day they found it, it was exactly 100 years since Ernest Shackleton was buried. The ship was just there, still upright, and you could still read the name on the back. It was like it was just waiting to be found again. Otzi the Iceman. In 1991, 2 hikers were coming down from the mountain in the Ötztal Alps. They found a human body in the ice. They thought it was a recent accident, but when it was examined, it turned out the body had been there for more than 5,300 years. He is the oldest naturally preserved human ever found in Europe. His skin is still visible. His body was still clearly recognizable, not just reduced to bones. For many years, scientists studied him. He was examined many times, and with each study, something new was learned about him. In 2012, and even more clearly in 2023, his DNA was analyzed. It turned out that his skin was darker than previously thought, and he was already bald when he was alive. Because of him, people understood better how ancient humans lived back then. A body left in the ice, but one that gave so many answers about the past. Otzi the Iceman is like an entire life story frozen in time. He had heart disease and he couldn't drink milk. He also had Lyme disease, and there were parasites in his stomach. Aside from these, he also had fractures in his ribs and nose before. The copper axe he carried provided a clue. The copper was said to have come from Tuscany, not from the place where he was found. This means he traded goods in the past. He also had 61 tattoos, simple lines, and marks on his body. But these weren't just designs. These were on parts of the body used to relieve pain, similar to acupuncture. This means they already knew how to reduce pain in the body back then. Even more surprising, there are people in Austria today who have the same DNA as him. This means he still has relatives even after more than 5,000 years have passed. Traces of his lineage were also found in North Africa. In other words, he's not just an ancient body. He still has a connection to people today. The plant that came back to life after 32,000 years in Siberia. A long time ago, there was a small animal that looked like a squirrel that buried seeds and fruits in the ground near the Kolyma River. He did this so he would have food during winter, but he never came back. The seeds were left underground and the place froze. It was sealed with no air, no light, and it didn't decay. 32,000 years passed until the year 2000. In 1907, some scientists discovered these buried seeds. They tried to grow them, but it didn't work anymore. But they thought of another way. They took the part of the plant attached to the seed. They placed it in a clean container with light and water. It grew. The plant grew and bloomed. It grew well. It was just like a normal plant. What's unusual is that the flower looked a bit different compared to plants today. It's as if it showed how the world changed over thousands of years. A plant that had been asleep for a long time but came back to life. It's like it showed that ice doesn't just hide things, it can also bring things back. After it grew, the plant bore fruit again, and its new seeds also grew normally. This plant is called Silenstinophylla, the oldest plant that was revived from a long-buried part. This is much farther compared to the previous record. Previously, the well-known one was the Judean date palm that grew from a 2,000-year-old seed. But this plant is 30,000 years older. This means that this is now the oldest living thing that has been brought back from such a distant past. But this isn't just about a single plant. In Siberia, Alaska, and the Arctic, there are vast areas of land that are always frozen. It's like a storage place for old things. Plants, animals, and even tiny microbes that have been frozen for thousands of years. Experts say it's like a repository of the world's ancient genes. Because of this, new experiments have been conducted. In 2014, it was used to revive an ancient virus from the permafrost. And that's where more studies began on things that have been frozen for a long time. A simple food stash of a small animal became the beginning of a big discovery. That animal just buried its food like it normally did. It didn't know that after 32,000 years, people would find it. And from those seeds, a flower would bloom. Small and simple, but it came from the Ice Age. It bloomed in a world that came long after its own time. And it showed a simple truth. Life, even if it's been gone for a long time, can still come back. And finally, if you think about it, this isn't just about things trapped in ice. It's about things that are left behind. Some things are lost, some things remain even after a long time. Not because they were hidden, but because of the cold and the place. And as time passes, they also come out. Not to scare people, but to show what existed before. With every discovery, we learn something new. Even if the answer isn't complete, something is still added to the story. As long as there is ice that hasn't melted yet, there are still things we haven't seen. And maybe one of those is just close to us.